Committee of the whole meeting. This time we will open the meeting with our call to order, pledge, and moment of silence. Mrs. Faust, when you're ready.
Mr. Brookhart. Dr. Faulkner.
Sorry. Here.
Mr. Garman.
Here.
Dr. Green. Mr. Gregg. Mr. Hoffman.
Here.
Mr. Reichert.
Here.
Mr. Umbriak.
Here.
Mr. Reichert Jr.
Here. 2-1, public comment, max of 3 minutes for agenda items only. Okay. So moving along, we have academic affairs, mental health agenda items. None this evening. Okay. So it'll take us to number 4, finance agenda items, and 4.1, the budget. I'll turn that over to, looks like Mr. Bavis.
Thank you so much. Mr. Ryan, if you could move this slide ahead. We're just going to do a quick review of what we've covered multiple times over the last several months. Board members, you've seen these figures previously, but just in case someone was tuning in online for the first time, I want to make sure we just recover a few things. First of all, the budget process is not something that comes together right here at the end of April and start of May. This is something that started, prior to me even coming on board with the district back in October. So administrators are already going through their budgets at the start of the school year for the, at the start of the 24-25 school year for the 25-26 budget year. We met, Dr. Need and I met with every administrator, every director in individual sessions to go over their expenditure requests. And then in January, we began sharing those updates with the board. We hosted multiple finance committee meetings, as well as discussing these figures in the committee of the whole meetings. So we did expenditures in January and February. In March, we covered revenues following the state's budget release by Governor Shapiro. And then last month, we put the package together, and essentially there haven't been changes since last month. So we're still at expenditures of $48,474,910. That does include a projected transfer to our capital reserve fund of $454,085.09 and a $200,000 budgetary reserve. As I mentioned, there were no updates to expenditures since the April presentation. And one thing that's important for the board to know about the 25-26 budget is that on the healthcare expense side, we do have a 1-year reprieve on what will likely be 10 to 15% increases on premiums going forward. And that's because when we switched from our fully insured Geisinger plan, that plan ran through the calendar year. When we switched to PSHIC, that plan, PSHIC runs on the school year, so they gave us an 18-month initial premium. So we joined up with them in January, and that first premium runs for 18 months, and it covers us through the whole 25-26 school year. So what we signed up for this January, which was already programmed into that anticipated increase in premiums was programmed into this year's budget, so it's not like we have extra costs this year. But that runs us through the 25-26 school year. So we don't have, on our Geisinger plan through PSHIC, we don't have a premium increase necessary for next year. So that's a one-time deal only. And so those are the key points on the expenditure side. So Mr. Ryan, if you could move ahead. On the revenue side, we do have a balanced budget with no projected use of fund balance. In order to balance the budget, it does include a local real estate tax increase at the Act 1 index of 4%. The adjusted millage for both counties would be 12.9186. This current year, it's 12.4218. The collection rate for the district is set at 96.5%. Historically, the district had set that rate at a little over 95%. Mr. Sokolowski last year reviewed our historical collections and reset that at 96.5%, which is spectacular across the districts in the area. So when I first came on board, I thought, well, that was, you know, a bold move on his part, but we came in within just several $1,000s of his projected budget. So that number was spot on. So kudos to him. The one note that we've discussed previously is that on the local real estate side, we do know we have a major real estate tax ticket with the Cherokee plant that may impact us in the future if they do appeals. On the earned income side, the district has a linear trend increasing earned income at a little over $200,000 a year. So we're budgeting a annual linear increase of $210,000. And then historically, the district has budgeted about $400,000 below what we actually have received in earned income. And so for one time, we can boost that up to our realistic expected collections on earned income. And so we're going from this fiscal year budgeting $8.4 million in earned income tax to budgeting slightly over $9 million at $9,010,000 in earned income tax. There's no change in the earned income tax rate related to that. That's just due to the natural growth in earned income that you receive as people's salaries increase. So that year-over-year increase is due to just folks in our community earning more. Earned income is a revenue source that can be more volatile than local real estate collections. It is more susceptible to economic fluctuations, but historically, Danville has seen consistent growth in earned income. The only dip in earned income over the last 7 or 8 years was the COVID year, so which was expected, but even that wasn't as substantial as many had predicted. So that's the picture on the local side. Mr. Ryan, if you could move the slide ahead one. So on the state side, we've discussed this previously, that the state, due to a funding constitutionality lawsuit, changed the funding formula. That's a pretty significant change for Danville, as most of the funds in Governor Shapiro's budget, most of the new funds are not being driven through the old formula. It's through the new adequacy formula, of which Danville receives $0. So they are still increasing the basic ed formula at $75 million. Of that $75 million, Danville is predicted to receive $43,000 additional dollars. Many districts budget their anticipated state revenues at slightly lower than what the governor projects. Usually that's generally not a bad practice, but in our budget, we are showing exactly what the governor's budget has predicted for us because the increase is so marginal. So, you know, if it was a year where the governor's proposed budget had hundreds and hundreds of thousands of dollars coming our way. That might be a line item that is budgeted conservatively, but I think at a $43,000 year-over-year increase, that's it's reasonable for us to budget the exact figure that he's proposed. So I don't actually see much potential for volatility in that. I think that is likely to be what comes through on the BEF side. On the federal side, we have budgeted level funding year over year. There of course is the potential for volatility because we're not directly in control of the allocations or the allocation method that the federal government might use. But as of now, I haven't seen any firm information that those revenue funds would be distributed in a different manner or at a different level. Thanks, Mr. Ryan. A few things on the Act 1 index, and this is, the board has seen this slide before, so I'll be brief with it, but just in case someone is watching for the first time, the Act 1 index is not something set locally, that's set by the state, and every district in the state is given either a base index or an adjusted one. The base index for this year was 4%, and Danville received the base Act 1 index, and essentially that's the state's way of saying, based on economic factors, that's our local inflation index. Some districts have an adjustment on top of that. For example, Danville last year had an adjustment on top of the base, but where our factors are right on the bubble, so we just received the 4%. So next slide, Mr. Ryan. And this is just a quick review of the last several years of the district's Act 1 index and the choice on local real estate taxes. So in 23-24, the Act 1 index was 4%. The district did not raise taxes at all in that year. For this current fiscal year, the district's Act 1 index was 6.1%. The district implemented a 3.5% tax raise. And then for the 25-26 fiscal year, the Act 1 index is 4%, and that is the tax raise that's in the proposed budget. That's just a note, once again, for anyone tuning in for the first time, you can't go back to prior years if you choose not to raise to the Act 1 index. That's a that year only choice that the district makes. And with that, Mr. Ryan, if you could move to the next slide. We'll talk a little bit about the budget approval process from here. Tonight, we have, after the conclusion of the Committee of the Whole meeting, we have a special meeting scheduled for the purpose of reviewing the proposed budget. We have the special meeting tonight because you need a 30-day window between your proposed and final adoption, and just due to the way the calendar falls, to get that 30 days prior to the June 11th meeting, we're hosting the special meeting tonight. In June, there are three things that will need to happen. The first is that the board will have to adopt a resolution setting tax rates. The second is that the homestead farmstead resolution will need to be considered. And the third is that the board has to adopt the final budget. It's currently scheduled for that board meeting on June 11th. The board has until June 30th to do so. And I just listed as a bullet once again that at some point following the adoption of our budget, the state budget will be approved in Harrisburg. So we're always asked to adopt our budget, usually prior to them finishing up last year it was actually adopted sooner than it has been in prior years. It's gone, past the past New Year's. I think the one year is like late February.
Late, yeah. I
Yeah.
don't know exactly when, Lance.
Last year was early.
Because at that year, some districts had to take out loans on future tax collections to meet their cash flow needs. This year, it is possible we'll see the state budget adopted swiftly again, because I think there is a sentiment in Harrisburg that if they have their budget adopted sooner rather than later, then if there are significant changes at the federal level, it's clear that those aren't, being impacted by state level decisions. So I have heard that, but that'll be interesting. So that's the main points on the budget process, and highlights of what we've covered the past several months.
And Mr. Mavis, just for the people that are watching at home that may not be familiar with it, with the homestead farmstead. So with going to the index of 4%, if they do qualify for that, they could actually see that percentage maybe end up at 2% for them with the homestead farmstead?
Correct. Yeah, the state did increase the homestead farmstead allocation to the district. So for our residents, that will reduce the effect of any tax increase.
I know when you mention a tax increase, everybody gets mad and, they want to come at us, but at least there's a little bit of a silver lining to the cloud that if you qualify for that, it may not be as much.
Yes.
Money that's going into the capital projects account, how much is already in that account?
So our capital reserve account is at approximately $5 million.
Is that a part of the full fund balance amount that's in the $11 million?
No,
$6 million and 5, or that's in addition to?
that's it. That's separate from the general fund balance.
There's 11 in the fund balance and there's 5 in the capital.
Capital reserve.
This will take it up to
5.5. Correct.
Whatever the case may be. Okay. Good enough. Let's see. You said, and I understand this, but I think it bears repeating, the decision we made with healthcare, because of the fact that it is now operating on a school fiscal year as opposed to a calendar year, kind of gives us a holiday.
Correct.
But we're going to get hit with 10 to 15% increases for the following 2 years. We anticipate we're going to see something happen with Cherokee. I'm certain they're going to go back for reassessments if all the things we hear are true about the future of the plant. We're seeing, and I think it was on a prior slide, a drop of several $100,000 in state allocations because of the fact that they got themselves into a lawsuit for improperly or unconstitutionally providing funds to public schools forever.
Right.
And now we're going to bear the brunt of it in the local public school districts, and board members like us are going to have to go out to the public and tell them that we're going to do things that we don't want to do because the people in Harrisburg
Correct.
don't do the things they're supposed to do, which is not my opinion. This was ruled on by a judge that it was unconstitutional. This started in 2013,
13. Yeah.
and they finally addressed it 9 years later, and now we're all going to pay the price.
Right.
All of the districts that previously were seen to have been funded to a higher level than they should have been, which is really not true.
And that per student expenditure level was set at the 21-22 school year, and since then Danville has reduced teacher count by about 22. So it's possible if they were resetting that snapshot at a future year, but
we're trapped
neither
at
here
that
nor
year.
there.
Right. And now they're
Yeah.
trying to backdoor around doing what they're supposed to do by saying that they're going to change the cyber funding formula. And they're going to
Correct.
comply with the constitutional mandate by doing that, even though they shouldn't have done that, which they've been doing for 20 years. So they're really, like, they're a joke.
Yeah.
People in Harrisburg, it's ridiculous. It's a shame. I feel sorry for the kids and the local school boards having to take on what they have to do because the people down in Harrisburg don't do what they're elected to do. And they continually come in with late budgets year after year after year, and there's absolutely no excuse for it. There's no reason for it. They don't start until too late. They know they need to get it done. It's ridiculous. Sorry.
No,
You know, I've taken on the role of finance committee chairperson. You guys do all the work.
Right.
I don't do it. But I feel badly for the public schools and the situation they're in right now. It's inexcusable.
And I
The-
think that's very fair to say because we don't take suggesting an Act 1 index raise lightly.
Yeah.
We're just,
Sure.
that's
yeah.
the position the state's put us in.
Right. And all the people locally that are out there telling you they're going to look out for you, yeah, wait. That's not happening. I read this stuff every single day, and I know the things they're saying out in the communities, and I know the things they're saying in their committee meetings. They're two entirely different things. So if anybody is in any of your ears locally telling you what they're going to do for this district, don't believe them.
the impact of the adequacy funds on districts that aren't receiving it will be felt at other districts before us. And so when they talk about that being, that's the other, I didn't mention it, but that's supposed to be a 7-year plan. So that's one of, it's not just a this year issue, it's a 7-year issue. And we're not, we're already feeling it since we're having this discussion about the Act 1 index tax raise. But it's going to be felt by other districts in terms of having to furlough teachers, even despite raising taxes, having severe fiscal issues. It's been maybe 2 months, but there was an article in the paper about Northwest Area School District and the impact there.
Yep.
I know just earlier this week, Millville was in the paper for looking at furloughing teachers, you know, and they're receiving, they're also receiving $0 in adequacy funds. So,
I talked to Joe Long up in Northwest at one point. Felt terrible for what's going on up there.
yeah,
They're not one of the districts that brought the state the lawsuit forward, but they're really not only in trouble for the things that go on with the funding formula, but also because a lot of their commercial real estate's in floodplain. So nobody wants to bring business in there. But anyway, that's my rant. That's my opinion. I just read this a lot, and it's discouraging to watch. And it's not the local public school districts, it's the people. Problems.
so at the conclusion of tonight's meeting, after this meeting adjourns, a special meeting will be held where we'll consider the proposed budget. But with that being said, we'll move on to the other finance items. This month we have the food service renewal contract for your review. Metz is in renewal year 3 of 4. This is next year will be the 4th year of the 5-year contract. They're showing a guaranteed profit for food service operations of $65,000 or $65,033.07. And just to put this on our radar, the 26-27 school year will have to be going through the food service RFP process, which is fairly lengthy, and your T's need to be crossed and your I's need to be dotted. PD's Bureau of Food and Nutrition is very thorough, so we'll be going through that process in 26-27 for the 27-28 school year. Next slide, Mr. Ryan. In addition, next week you'll have lunch and a la carte prices, and we're not anticipating any changes in those. If there would be any changes in meal prices, it would be because as we run through the paid lunch equity tool, there are USDA requirements at times that your lunch prices are set at certain rates. But that'll be on the agenda for next week as well. Next slide, Mr. Ryan. The prior to the calendar year, we had requests from our local tax collectors to discuss the tax collection rates that will be going into effect with the next term, which starts in the tax year 2026. The board addressed that issue in January, and two of the tax collectors that are currently deputizing the district, the tax collectors for West Hemlock and Valley Townships, have notified the district that even despite those raises not being in place for the 2025 tax year, they'd like to resume collections in July 2025. So the district will still be collecting taxes for Cooper Township. Next slide. We'll also have next week PSBA membership renewal. The year-over-year increase on that is just slightly over $200. Next slide, please. We'll have the voluntary student accident and interscholastic sports insurance policy renewal on next week's agenda. The policy that we're currently bringing forward to the board for consideration has a $200 year-over-year increase, and that $200 increase is to cover the activities of our ski club, which are currently not covered under that student accident policy. And so the policy is currently $8,607. To cover the ski club would be $8,807. So if the board, would be interested in considering that without that option, I could certainly get a quote for that. Next slide, please, Mr. Ryan. And the final thing under finance tonight is something that I wanted to bring to the board for consideration as we're looking at next fiscal year, and also some of the economic concerns that we're currently facing. I spoke with our technology department and our maintenance department about equipment that we know we might need in the next fiscal year or two, and are there items that we could potentially buy now, items that we'll have long-term use for, using funds that are allocated in this year's budget that we don't anticipate spending. So on the technology department side, we've actually already taken care of the two main items. One was the switching equipment, and the other were the Chromebooks for next year. On the maintenance side, in next year's budget, we actually have programmed in funding for a pickup truck and a box truck to cover those which are both in need of replacement. Our box truck probably only has maybe 1 or 2 years left before it stops passing inspection. And actually the pickup truck is replacing a van that actually has been allocated to the technology department. In addition to that, there's the district has a Ventrac mower that is currently over 12 years old, and a regular mower that the district has had for 7 years, and it was bought used. So what I'm bringing to the board for consideration tonight is that in the maintenance budget in 26-20, there's currently funds that haven't been expended, and we don't anticipate being expended out of those as we're coming to the conclusion of the fiscal year, but they're in object codes that are not allocated for replacement equipment. So in full transparency, if we were, it would not be appropriate for us to purchase any of that equipment out of the 610 supplies or 431 maintenance services, because it would be it's replacement equipment. So wanted to have that discussion with the board. Like I said, the the vehicles are actually currently part of the proposed budget for next year. So if we would choose to do a budget transfer in this fiscal year and we were able to purchase them prior to the end of the fiscal year, we would take those funds that were allocated in the for next fiscal year and probably program them in as part of the capital reserve projected transfer. As far as the mowers, that would just be for the board's consideration. Typically, I am not a fan of the idea that you spend out your allocated budget if you don't have uses for it in that fiscal year. This is not a recommendation I expect I would be coming to the board with next year. I think we just have kind of a unique situation right now in terms of economic policy nationally, where we may see some price increases on some of these. As far as the pickup trucks, that's only a matter of waiting, on the order of several months. But if the board would adopt the proposed budget, but
Talk about tariff avoidance?
yes, yeah,
You can just say it.
yeah.
Yeah.
Try not to get too
It just,
political.
I was saying, it just feels like one of the industries that will be affected.
So, I mean, personally, I did, in my prior role when I was tech director several years ago, I did anticipate significant price increases on technology equipment, and we locked in a server infrastructure that only 6 months later would have increased by about 40%. So, yeah. Something for the board's consideration. As far as the actual, so all of the equipment that we would be considering purchasing is available on CoStars. So we could potentially, if the board was interested, we could process this transfer and obtain CoStars quotes and potentially even have this for a potential approval next week. If the board wanted us to go through the formal bid process, we could start that as well and have that potentially for consideration at the June meeting. So you require 3 weeks.
Do we have a price estimate for all the equipment?
We do.
The 195 would get us
Correct.
cuts and larger in the line item.
This is in
No, the
truck.
truck.
Any budget.
Trucks are in next year's budget. The lawnmower is not currently in a budget. That is a need that came. The total price for trucks and lawnmowers takes us to 195.
This year.
This year.
Yes.
So
Correct.
have we budgeted for it next year?
The trucks, yes. So we would. That, yeah,
But we budgeted for it next year, so
correct.
Yes.
how much would be removed?
Approximately 150 for the
Second
trucks.
number.
Yes, the second number.
Okay.
Mhm.
So that would have an impact on next year's budget.
We could do it now.
Yes. Yeah.
Preliminary would not be accurate.
The total expenditures would be the same if it was moved into a projected capital reserve expenditure.
I was going to bring this up a little bit later. Ask about the capital fund. $458,000 have to put in that. That can be a reduction from the budget. Tax increase. Don't do the tax increase.
going forward.
But I think we should understand that that is an option. Done a great job with the foundation.
Thank you.
In front of us, we've been asking about this since. Well, I'm really very confident. Health is going to fall on other people. Foundation started, we'll raise 450. Probably more. We could raise it. So there is an option. Modify the budget.
Correct.
Okay, got it.
So then there is actually one more slide under finance. Mr. Ryan, if you could go forward. So in school code, in the month of May, the board is to elect a secretary and treasurer. The secretary's term is to be 4 years, beginning on July 1st and ending June 30th, 2029. A treasurer's term is to go from July 1st, 2025 and ending on June 30th, 2026. For school districts of our class, the treasurer can be a member of the board as long as it's not, as long as that person does not hold another office on the board. Typically, in our local area, the treasurer is a member of the board. There are some districts for whom, for which the treasurer is an employee in the business office. However, I'm not aware of any where it's actually the business manager. Muncie School District uses a staff accountant as their treasurer. So if they're, but most of the districts in our area use or a board member is elected to that office. So if there's feedback from the board on those two, I would presume Mrs. Faust would be interested in being elected as secretary for that next term. But if there's anyone interested in being treasurer, that is it's in school code that it's to occur in May, and it's so that person has the opportunity to be bonded prior to the start of their term on July 1st. So, and that's all for finance.
So just going back real quick to what Wayne was talking about, the money in that fund, could that be used to cover the expenses for the items we were talking about?
Talking about the
Mowers and the truck?
$458,000
The
putting into the capital.
Capital reserve,
The
you
money
mean?
for the trucks and the mowers can just come out of other line items we currently
Okay.
have. So we have the money for those items, they're just listed. Okay, we're not gonna like use supply money on new equipment. We wanna transfer the money from supply to new equipment. And we would not need to put those trucks in next year's budget. Our recommendation would be that we then put that money in cap reserve to have additional funds there. But we would not have to do that. That would be like $150,000 back.
And
You
you,
don't mind, I
yeah,
guess since I am
yeah.
finance committee.
Yeah.
Districts have to over budget because you don't know some of the expenditures you
You don't
may
know what's
run
coming.
into.
Yeah,
You could get 2 students with multiple disabilities that cost you $300,000. You don't have any idea, and if you do, you have to budget for it. You don't know what you may know what your heating costs are in the winter. You may be locked into rates and all, but most districts, there's a lot of flexibility in a lot of things. When you get to about March, April, you may see that you have some leftover money and start making some purchases that you want to take off of next year's budget because next year's budget's looking a little tighter. If you don't do that, that money becomes fund balance money. If you do it, your fund balance is less, but you get some relief in next year's budget. This year, it's a little bit more serious because of the potential tariffs and who knows what's going to happen with federal funding. So I think the discussions that most districts are in are a little more serious. And a lot of districts aren't in as good a position as we are, to be frank about it. We're talking Northwest and schools like that. But the money that I referred to as the $458,000 that we have allocated next year for, we call it, it's the capital, it's not a reserve fund though, is it? It's a capital
It's a,
projects fund.
Yeah, capital projects. I mean, it's Fund 32, and Fund 32 is only to be funded with monies that are in surplus in a particular fiscal year.
Right.
And then once those funds are in there, they can't be expended or transferred back to the general fund.
Right.
Whereas like bond funds, Fund 39, capital, that, you know, those capital projects funds, they can be transferred back to the general fund, you know, and that's how we pay for like our NTCC, or not NTC, CMVT bond issue.
What you're recommending makes good fiscal sense. I think it does anyway. I mean, it makes a lot of sense. But the other piece of it was the 458. That
Yeah.
money is only really supposed to be used on projects, right?
Correct. It can, yeah.
So it wouldn't be used for materials unless it was part of a project like a field house or something like that.
Yeah, the Auditor General specific, like, you can't use it for vehicles, you can't use it for equipment of the nature that we're talking about. So, so that's why we would be looking to, as far as the vehicles go and that sort of thing, we won't be looking to cover that out of a capital reserve purchase. It would be general fund.
Right, but what you're saying, it definitely makes sense. And the foundation, I know I'm jumping ahead a little bit,
Yeah.
that doesn't necessarily have to be used for athletic-type projects. It can be used for an awful lot of things. There's going to be a board that determines that.
Yep.
We're going to talk about
As
later.
long as you're
Yep.
upfront about what
Yeah.
people are donating to, yeah.
Yes.
Mm-hmm.
And there are a
So
lot
do
of
we have
those
to
around.
vote on the budget transfer?
That would be a
Next
vote,
week.
yeah, that would
Right,
be
I mean,
next
I know
week.
not right now, but
Yeah,
that's,
next-
that's, okay.
Yeah, the board would have to
Because
approve
it's
that.
coming out of a different
Mhm.
account
Moving
than what
from
we
like
initially intended.
one
Okay.
line item to another.
That makes sense to me, too.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's-
The board has the authority, 90 days after the school year starts, to reallocate funds that it budgeted within one, you know, account code area into another. So that's, and actually next month, and you did this last year, it's pretty common. Typically, the business manager is given approval to process end-of-year budget transfers to close out the fiscal year, just a general one. But that's usually for, like, you know, you had a staff member that, you know, they're budgeted into one assignment, but then they're transferred mid-school year, so their salary needs to be transferred, their budgeted salary needs to be transferred to another functional area. So that's usually what that approval gives the business manager. It would have been inappropriate for me to use that sort of carte blanche approval to cover something like this. Right,
if I were in your position, that's for sure.
right.
All right. Thank you, Mr. Mavis.
Mhm.
That'll take us to,
Would the board be interested in serving as treasurer?
We have to name someone on the agenda, not me.
I think it should be somebody that's going to be on beyond
Give us a chance.
Yeah.
this election cycle, so it's certainly not me.
so there's only
Or,
two people that are definitely here, 3 people he holds in office. So there's only 2 people that are definitely here, and one of them's not present tonight.
it doesn't have to be a board member either.
Correct.
Right?
Correct.
It does not have to be a board member.
So I think, if there are any interested board members, contact, I guess, Dr. Need prior to the weekend when we finalize the agenda. If not, I could talk to, some of the business office staff and see if that would be appropriate.
Qualifies, who exactly is on your staff?
Mrs. Norman or Mr. Adams would be, yeah, yeah. I mean, Mrs. Norman,
I just didn't want to assume that Jonathan was.
yeah, yeah.
I know he's been working with you closer, but I just didn't want to. And I didn't know what Beth. I know Beth had done some tax collection, but I didn't know if she would like fell under your umbrella also.
Is there a reason it's mostly board members in the area, or is it just a?
It's an office of
thing.
the board. Yeah.
I don't know how it goes different paths in different districts.
Right.
I'm really not sure. Secretary's usually, it's usually the superintendent's secretary. But sometimes that's a board member too. I've seen that. Done
Yeah.
very often. We're not trying to replace you. I'm just saying, we've seen it. I've seen it happen.
Yeah, at Sullivan, it was a board member that was secretary, and then the business manager always served as assistant secretary. So if there's like a day-to-day need, it could be handled. But
Yeah, it's kind of
that-
common.
yeah, just different districts handle these things, uniquely. It's one of the we have a very nice school system in the Commonwealth that does allow for a large degree of local control, and I think that's important because each of our communities is its own unique entity. So.
Since you're already here, would it be something you'd have interest in, or? Okay. I mean, you're already here, and I know you're probably like, every time I see you, you throw something else at me. Would you just stop? Yeah.
We don't have one.
Compensated position?
It can be.
Okay.
It can be. Yeah, actually, I spoke with Scott Johnson of Yoder Insurance, and he said he provides the bond for the secretary, and he said he didn't have one anytime recently for the treasurer, because I was like, oh, so
Right.
we would need to get a bond for the treasurer as well through Yoder Insurance.
And it can be a compensated position.
It can be, yes.
So that's another discussion we probably should have. If it's,
Oh, because if it becomes compensated, then it can't be somebody on the board.
I'm not sure about that. I don't think it can be.
I don't,
I've never had it be a board member, so I've never experienced it.
I would assume that it.
I would
could be.
assume no.
Right.
Well, never dealt with it as a board member.
That might be a question for Jennifer.
Well, if
Yeah.
anybody has any
Stand back.
nominations, please submit them to Mrs. Faust or Dr. Need before Friday, please, or when the agenda comes out. So now, we will move ahead to.
that takes us to the farm lease. We talked about this some last time. You could just move ahead one slide, Mr. Ryan. Just want to be upfront about the farm lease. To remind you what we talked about last month, the farmer that has historically farmed the land across from the primary school is interested in doing so again for one more season. We don't currently have any plans to utilize that facility for the length of like what that one farming season would look like. The borough would be very thankful for them to farm that land because it would help the land that they also lease from the borough in terms of just quality of farming. Their crops were apparently hurt by that not being farmland this past season. I would need to name that we have, it has gone through borough council vote, and we have a letter from Brindy stating that they would not exercise the clause in the deed that said that if it wasn't used for athletic fields, they could take the land back. Our solicitor would say she's not entirely sure that letter is enough and we should go for a deed change, but there was not time for a deed change and time for a vote because they'd need to plant. So I just need to tell you that that's what the solicitor says. It is up for vote tonight. I would recommend, there's no indication that the borough isn't going to work well with us. We have it in writing from them. Like, I feel very confident that the right thing to do is to lease that farmland. I just would be irresponsible if I didn't say that we didn't actually change the wording to the deed.
No, and like you had previously stated, that the borough was kind of excited for us to allowing it to be farmed again, because like you had said, their crop suffered damage from us not farming it, which I think constituted the farmer to go back and renegotiate with them for a lower rate. So
Yes,
by
it's
us,
more money for them too.
correct. so I don't see
And
why.
we do have in writing from them that it has gone through their council vote and they're in support of it. I feel like it's a win for us, a win for the farmer, a win for Borough, and a way to be good neighbors, but. So the only two voting items tonight would be the approval of the, proposed budget and, which is just vote one on the budget, and then farm, so that he could move forward. Then that takes us to two items within athletics and extracurriculars. The first item is about the formation of color guard, which is something Danville has historically had. And Laura Garside, who's our band director, approached Dr. Gump about that. So I don't know if Lee, you want to talk about your conversation with Laura and.
Yeah, sure. Thank you. So as Laura Garside continues to grow the band program, this is one of those next steps that she had in her mind for a couple of years, and now it's at the point where she feels that she wanted to approach administration and the school board on this possibility of adding the color guard corps. So this would fall under, of course, like a club type of arrangement. So when I went to Dr. Need about this, I believe she gave the board a little bit of a heads up here and came back and asked that we do an interest survey of students. So in April, we put out an interest survey to students in grades 8 through 11, so the students that will be up in the high school next year. 48 students responded. 27 of those 48 students indicated interest in participating. So underneath there, just by grade, has a little bit of a breakdown of the interest, again, by grade level. 11th graders apparently are very excited about a color guard. So when this, after this went through, talked to Mrs. Garside about what the expenses would look like for this group. So down below, year one expenses would include a suggested stipend for the board to consider of $1,500 for a color guard advisor, $500 for equipment repair, and she said there are uniforms still left over from when we had a color guard before, and also equipment. So if we just had some money set aside for repair, she feels we could put something together and look very look solid for the fall. So with that, she also added, it's not up here, but she also, if we needed anything else, she feels people in the band community, local schools and so on, could also just help them through getting the group off the ground. So an estimated total for year one would be about $2,000 of a cost. Moving forward, if it takes off and it grows, we would have to consider possible new uniforms, new flags, poles, etc. At this time, don't have those prices, but again, just a consideration for down the road. Any questions from the board?
Dr. Gump, would this be part of like band as far as a grade then concerned, or?
So it would not be a grade, but they would be whatever event that the marching band is a part of, color guard would be there with them. But no, it would not be a graded type of.
Not like a
So-
period in the day where like they're playing the instruments, but band does meet like after school and evenings practices.
Yes, in the
So
summer as well,
strictly
yes.
extracurricular rather than co-curricular.
As far as like fall for football, does that add anything to transportation?
I asked that question. She said no, it would not. The one thing that we've been talking about over the last couple of years, she has included the cheerleaders as part of the busing there. So that has been something that really there's been room on the bus for cheerleaders. They have joined that bus. So we would have to work with Brian and the sports buses, the football buses, to see what we can do with the cheerleaders at that point.
We have not advertised for a color guard advisor or anything, just wanted to bring it to you before we added a new club. Questions? And then the next item that I wanted to share with the board is we have been discussing junior high girls wrestling, and there's been some back and forth about whether or not the girls having their own wrestling team at the junior high level would allow for more or less competition, because it was sort of like we're watching other local school districts and our people creating girls teams. At this point in time, we do have 21 girls that have expressed interest in being a part of junior high girls wrestling. Some of them currently participate with the boys team. Some would be new people out for the sport. And it seems like since the last time we've had some conversation, we are seeing growth in the region to now Mr. Albertson feels fairly confident there'll be at least 8 districts regionally that would be offering junior high girls wrestling. We also could take girls to tournaments, and then they'd get their own set of points and not be using some of the boys' points when they're at tournaments. Obviously, it's still a growing sport, so we wouldn't necessarily be able to count on exact weight lineup at every one of these dual meets or invitationals, but we could be a part of the growth of that sport, and we do have that at the varsity level. Approximate cost would be a coach salary for junior high, uniforms for our junior high girls, transportation for them, and tournament fees. Mr. Albertson, I don't know if you have anything else you'd want to add about the growth in that sport.
Well, it is growing. There was just a survey one of the ADs sent out and asked everybody who had it. That's how I got the number of 8 local schools. For the tournaments, a lot of times now with it growing, they're running boys and girls together, like a girls tournament right alongside the boys tournament. So our PHAC junior high or our District 4 junior high tournament at the end of the year, last year our girls had to participate against boys, and there was a girls tournament going on at the same time, which is, a little frustrating for our girls. But I think now I don't know if we could get a full 22 points, but we could have enough for a junior high girls program to make it, worthwhile. And how this came about, again, I'll just give you a little history there. One of the girls, well, actually 3 of the girls from the team last year that wrestled with the boys asked to meet with me. I went down to the middle school and met with them, and they thought they could get more girls if we had just a girls team. And they asked me how many they needed for us to do that. And I gave them a number because I really didn't know, but I said, get 12 or 13. They came back with 21. So, and once practice starts, will it stay at 21? We don't know that, but there is some interest there if we have a separate girls team. Any questions?
Did any of the other schools give you numbers to about how many participants they had, or?
No, and it varies from school to school. I know Hughesville I think they have a full team, both varsity and junior high. Shikellamy has junior high now. They have quite a few, girls participating on their junior high girls team. So it is growing. There's more schools getting it every year, and there's more schools also discussing it at the board level, like coming up in the near future.
Thank you for looking into this, Mr. Albertson. That takes us to 8.1 foundation bylaws, and I certainly echo what Mr. Burkhart was saying and thank Mr. Bamis for his work on the foundation. So I'll turn it over to him to speak about that.
So next slide, Mr. Ryan. So I'll just highlight a few things that are in your packet tonight. So there's a book, thank you, Mrs. Faust, and about halfway through you'll find the bylaws of the foundation. A draft of these bylaws was shared with you last month. A few key items that are outlined here, of course, the organizational structure, how many directors need to be on the board. It's set at a minimum of 7 and a maximum of 15. There's an advisory board that would include the superintendent and the Danville Area School District board president and a minimum of 6 other interested individuals. So things like that are included here, just structural in nature. There's items in the bylaws that sort of outline the relationship between the Danville Area School District and the Ironman Foundation, which is what it's currently named. And one of the key ones is that the Ironman Foundation would need to bring to the Danville Area School District Board of Directors any requests to embark on a substantial fundraising campaign. So this is to write in the bylaws that you would be approving and that the Ironman Foundation would be beholden to. It's to ensure that the Ironman Foundation's fundraising efforts are aligned with the interests of the Danville Area School District. What we wouldn't want to have happen at some point in the future is where the foundation would start receiving funds for a project that the district was just unable to pursue. You know, it's always wonderful when you have members of the community that want to contribute to the success of the school district, but sometimes there are just some programs or projects that don't align with the long-term vision and activities of the district. So I think it's important that that's addressed in the bylaws to make sure that we potentially avoid a unpleasant situation sometime in the future. So in addition to that, there's the opportunity for the Ironman Foundation to present a yearly report to the district. And so a lot of those details are outlined in here. I've been involved in some nonprofit and community groups in the past, and one of the most challenging things is if that group chooses to end, how does that take place? So there's fairly detailed guidelines in the bylaws that would show how the group would close down if it ever got to that point. So the policy and the bylaws would be up for vote next week, and then the push would be on to try to have a board of directors ready to be established in the first quarter of next fiscal year, so we could host an annual meeting, preferably in September.
So if this were to be used to at least partially fund a project of some type, the board would have to establish and determine what the scope of the project was, determine what the cost would be. That's out there. Then there's a capital campaign of some type to fund it in part.
Mm-hmm.
Probably never fully fund the project, but at least partially fund the project. That would be the goal.
Correct.
Okay. Got it.
Bylaws. Next item in this section is emergency operations all hazards plan. The district does have an emergency operations all hazards plan. At a point due to some laws where it's time to just look at an updated version of that. So board members, you do have that full plan for your review as well that Mrs. Faust has made into a book for you. And essentially the purpose of having that is, first of all, it's just legally required, but to ensure the safety and well-being of all of our students by just being very proactive in identifying potential risks, threats, and emergencies that could happen in the district. If you go to the next slide, Mr. Ryan, you'll see I just wanted to make the board aware that in writing this plan, this puts us in compliance with PDE's requirements for school safety. And so you'll see there various acts that are required for us to follow in terms of what belongs in our all hazards plan. So this compliance requirements. And then if you go to the next slide, you'll see just key components in the plan, just an overview of compliance, what our emergency operations planning looks like from a district level down to individual building teams, what incident command would look like if in a particular emergency situation. Safety plans are now PDE is now asking for districts to put what you're doing in terms of climate and culture and mental health for your students, because that's such a preventative portion of having emergency operations in the district. And then specific things that we do for prevention, preparedness, response, and recovery in a situation. And so you'll see all of that outlined in the plan. Kind of married to the emergency operations plan, so another thing that will be up for approval is that you have to continuously get MOUs every several years, MOUs updated with law enforcement, and there's some changes to the language that is now being recommended in school code for what those MOUs will look like. So that document is in this plan as well, and so once that's approved by the district, I would get a newly signed MOU from all of our local law enforcement. Are there any questions there? That takes us to 9.1 then, which is just the personnel updates that will be up for approval at the May meeting. Mr. Ryan, if you could go up just another slide. So next week for approval, there will be a middle school assistant principal position in which we had 7 applicants and 5 interviews, and an interview team of Mr. Haravi, Dr. Reiner, Ms. Wenrick, and myself. A varsity boys basketball coach. You'll see several sporting coaches, athletic coaches up for approval. A varsity golf position, a varsity competitive cheer position, and an assistant girls varsity soccer coach position. Those will be up for approval on next Wednesday night. That takes us to you, Mr. Reichert, with 10.1.
Board concerns and items for next meeting agenda.
The only thing I have, did we ever, the land behind Liberty Valley, do we have that like surveyed as to we know what is ours and isn't ours back there?
Oh, as to what a recent survey?
Yeah.
I thought you were going to ask about the soil sampling.
No,
which
no,
has-
I know we did
was
that,
done.
but like all of the land back there in general that's ours or not ours.
I would need to look up when the last time that ground was surveyed. We have maps, yeah. So,
Because there is area back there that's pretty heavily wooded that I believe is ours. I don't know for sure, speculation. But the idea, I talked to Junior about it a little bit. I mean, as we talk about money concerns and stuff getting tighter and all of this, some people have approached me and asked me about the potential of farming some of the land back there if we aren't going to use it, which I'm totally fine with. But if the heavily wooded area is ours, obviously that would have to be cleared to be farmed, 1. And 2, if we ever do a project back there, it's going to have to be cleared anyway. So if there's any timber back there that's of use to anybody, would be a good source of pretty much free money to us at this point. So. Well, yeah, I mean, stuff would have to be done to be able to do
use
this.
it, right.
And as, you know, you talk to taxpayers and, you know, hey, we're going to do this. If, you know, you have to use somebody else's access a little bit to get to it, you know. I was just in general thought of, you know, what could be done back there or the potential for stuff to be done back there. But obviously,
We could share that map.
yeah,
next
yeah,
week
obviously
your
that
folder so
starts
you
with,
can see that.
yeah,
Right.
what's ours and what isn't ours to begin with.
And just coming back to the soil sampling, that work was done just prior to Easter, and so next week we have a portion of the invoice from Pannoni for their work on site. I'm anticipating receiving the soil study from their team sometime in the next week and a half. So we may have it by next Wednesday night. I just don't know if it will be done by then. That would give us an indication of whether that that property would even be a potential for a use, project in the
Yeah.
future.
Yeah. Yeah, and the farming, I mean, the land back there is surrounded by, literally surrounded by fields, so as far as like the farming aspect, I imagine, somebody could do
Right.
something with it.
What's the latest with the tennis courts?
What was that?
The tennis courts. Where
Uh,
are we with that?
Yeah, so the had a meeting with the project manager from Keystone Sports Construction. They're well aware of our schedule. They're anticipating mobilizing after graduation and beginning that process. So it lines up lines up perfectly with their calendar currently. Of course, the weather could change that, but and so actually, and there will be the first payment for that will be up on next week's agenda, because the draw schedule has 30% due upon signing of the contract, and then that draw schedule is 30% due signing of the contract, 30% upon mobilization. So that bill would probably arrive actually may not be here in time for our June meeting. That'd be July. Completion of paving, I would expect we'd have that for our August meeting, and potentially the final payout for that. So, yeah, it's moving along.
Sounds good.
And it moves to public comment for anybody in the room that has anything.
I have something. I was approached by a community member about a subject that had been talked about before, and there's some ambiguity about it. That is transgender boys participating in girls' sports. Person is very concerned about it. Wondering if there is a specific policy in the Danville Area School District for this. I know it's not an issue now, but if it came up, what would be the policy? I know there's some districts, and I think in Philadelphia they still allow that, and there is some differences between districts and superintendents, principals, et cetera. So do we really actually have a policy if a transgender boy decided to participate in girls' sports?
At this time, I want to be clear that at this point in time, that is not happening in Danville. We would certainly, PIAA does have some regulations around that. So the first steps we'd take is to look at PIAA regulations and speak with our solicitor. Should that matter come to our attention?
But it's apparently, I mean, if they allowed in Philadelphia, and that's, they're in Pennsylvania, so, I mean, how can they allow it there and not other places?
I can't really speak to how they're making their decision there. If you have specific information, I'd certainly be happy to read about it, but I'm not sure about that.
Question, but we're not in the Philadelphia school.
Right. I'll follow PIAA regulations, and I would speak with our solicitor. But again, that is not currently happening in the Danville Area School District.
So how would you, excuse me, but I don't want to belabor this, but, so if this year, or next year, if a transgender student came up and said, oh, I want to play, I want to wrestle, or I want to play basketball, how would you handle that?
Well, again, I would follow PIAA regulations
What is
and
the
go with our
actual, what is
solicitor.
the actual
So if you,
PIAA regulation?
I think the reason that I'm just kind of being a broken record on this is just because those are the steps that I would take if put in that position. And specifically in PIAA, it depends whether or not they also offer the opposite gender in that sport. So when you're naming wrestling, for example, there is boys wrestling and there is girls wrestling. So there is an alternative for that person to be a part of. There are some sports that is only that sport for one gender. So PIAA, it depends on what sport someone will be trying to play. So for example, like football, there is not a female version of football right now in Pennsylvania. So law is different for a sport like that. So that's why I'm naming that answer, because I think this situation would would end up being very specific, and in that specific situation, I would look at PIAA, I would speak with our solicitor, and I would meet with that family and try to be as respectful to that family and respectful to the rest of our student population as possible. And would certainly bring the issue to the board.
Nothing else, we'll adjourn this meeting and we'll go to our special meeting regarding the budget.
Yes, very good.
Islands. Mrs. Faust, I think we're all still here, but go ahead and check.
Mr. Brookhart,
Still here.
Dr. Faulkner,
Here.
Mr. Garman,
Here.
Dr. Green, Mr. Gregg, Mr. Hoffman.
Here.
Mr. Reichard,
Here.
Mr. Umbriak,
Here.
Mr. Reichard Jr.
I'm here. Number 2.1 public comment. Take us to item number 3.1 proposed final budget. Board will take action to approve the 25-26 proposed final budget as presented. Have a motion?
Motion.
Second.
Who was first? I'm sorry.
Tyler.
Mr. Brookhart,
Have discussion, questions, things like that, but first, before that? Before there's a vote?
Yeah, I think that's fine.
Yeah.
Okay, that's what I thought. Okay, first of all, I want to recap what we had before. We're in the public meeting now, and there will be minutes. So I want to make sure it is noted that we have, I think Dr. Need said, reduced 22 positions. Those are professional positions, so they're the higher salaried with medical and all associated. We've done what we can to get our budget to the level we can. I think moving forward, we're going to have to be very careful with deficit reductions and making sure we have a deficit. We look at everything, and I've talked to Mr. Mabus several times, and you've assured me that that's been done. And the only thing we really have left is the tax increase, or to not put the $458,000 in capital reserve and drop the tax increase. That decision can be made between now and next month. But that is an option. I want to make sure that that's on the table as the head of the Finance Committee. Anyone else? Because I'll vote if no one else has anything to say. Yes.
I say, we move to voting.
okay. Mr. Brookhart,
Yes.
Dr. Faulkner,
Yes.
Mr. Garman,
Yes.
Mr. Hoffman,
Yes.
Mr. Reichard,
Yes.
Mr. Umbriak,
Yes.
Mr. Reichard Jr.
Yes. 3.2, the farming lease agreement. The board will take action to approve the farming lease agreement between Danville Area School District and Wareham Farms and Harvesting Incorporated for 20.1 acres of land at a rate of $220 per acre for a total of $4,422 effective April 2nd, 2025 through December 2025 as presented. Does anybody have any questions or anything they want to discuss further on this subject?
We shared it in the last meeting, but I'd just like to thank the borough for their support in this process.
there's no other questions or anything, can I get a motion?
Second?
Dr. Faulkner,
Yes.
Mr. Garman,
Yes.
Mr. Hoffman,
Yes.
Mr. Reichard,
Yes.
Mr. Umbreak,
Yes.
Mr. Brookhart,
Yes.
Mr. Reichard Jr.
Yes. Take us to item 4, public comment.
Bless you.
We will now adjourn to executive session. The rest of you may go home, drive safely, and we will see you next week for our voting meeting.